Welcome to Fighting Words, spiritual sparring for rank-and-file believers. I'm Brother Logan, Director of Education for the Hospitallers of St. Martin and co-creator of Gruntworks. Each week, I march us through the Sunday lectionary readings, dragging biblical interpretation back to rank-and-file believers where it belongs. Sometimes, I also interview companions along the way who are engaged in their own wrestling match with the Word. Thanks for joining us. Let's get it on. Micah chapter 6, verses 1 through 8. Hear now a word. The Lord of gods has said, Arise, plead with the mountains, and let the hills hear your voice. Hear, y'all, O mountains, the controversy of the Lord, and y'all valleys, even the foundations of the earth. For the Lord has a controversy with the people, and will plead with Israel. O my people, what have I done to you? Or how have I worn you down? Or how have I troubled you? Answer me. For I brought thee out of the land of Egypt, and redeemed you out of the house of servitude, and sent before you Moses and Aaron and Miriam. O my people, remember now what counsel Balak, king of Moab, took against you, and what Balaam, the son of Beor, answered him from the reeds of Galgal, that the rightness of the Lord might be known. What can I possibly bring to the Lord, and impress my God, the highest? Shall I reach him by whole burnt offerings, by calves of a year old? Will the Lord accept thousands of rams and tens of thousands of fat goats? Shall I give my firstborn for rebelling, the fruit produced by my body for the sin of my innermost soul? Haven't you heard, O earthling, what is good? Or what does the Lord require of you but to embody justice, practice mercy, and be ready to walk with gods? Psalm 15. O Lord, who shall sojourn in your tent, and who shall dwell on your holy hill? One that doesn't walk all over others, and does the right works, who speaks truth from their heart, who has not spoken with a forked tongue, or screwed over their neighbor, or offended those nearest them. In their sight evildoers are exposed, but they honor the God-fearers. They make promises to their neighbor without disappointing them. They don't lend money at interest or accept bribes to corrupt innocents. They that do these things shall never be swayed. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 18 through 31. For the logic of sacrificial living is foolishness to those who are spoiled, but to us who are being renewed in the power of God, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, I will bring the agreement of the agreeable to nothing. Where is the wise? Where is the scholar? Where is the influencer of this age? Hasn't God made foolish the wisdom of the world? Whereas in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom didn't know God. It was God's good pleasure that through the foolishness of preaching to save those who believe. For Jews ask for signs, Greeks seek after wisdom, but we preach a Savior crucified, a non-starter to Jews and foolishness to Greeks. But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ is the power of God and the wisdom of God. Because the foolishness of God is wiser than us, and the weakness of God is stronger than anyone. As for your calling, folks, not many are wise even according to regular standards. Not many are strong, and not many are from good families. But God chose the foolish things of the world to embarrass those who think themselves wise. God chose the weak things of the world that he might embarrass the strong. God chose the lowly things of the world, and the things that are despised, and the things that barely register, that he might bring to nothing those who are entitled, that nobody should boast before God. Because of him you are in Christ Joshua, who appeared to us as wisdom from God, and righteousness and self-improvement and liberation. That, as it is written, he who boasts, let him boast in the Lord. The Gospel of Matthew chapter 5, verses 1 through 12. Noticing he had an audience, he went up on a hill. Then he sat down, and his students came to him. He opened his mouth and began to teach them, saying, Blessed are those whose spirit is exposed, for theirs is the republic of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the humbled, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be granted mercy. Blessed are those whose souls are clear, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peace workers, for they shall be called children of God. Blessed are those who have been persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the republic of heaven. And blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and make up all kinds of shit about you, for my sake. Rejoice and be glad as fuck, for your reward is in heaven. For your reward in heaven will be all the greater. For that is how they persecuted the prophets who were before you. All right, welcome to the fourth Sunday after Epiphany, or E4 Sunday, where my Tech 4s and Terminal Lance is at. This is Brother Logan Isaac broadcasting from the Chapter House in Albany, Oregon. Our readings come to us today from Micah 6, Psalm 15, 1 Corinthians 1, and Matthew 5. You'll see a pattern here. There's instruction, and deliberate instruction. It's not, oh, here's some proverbs here and there. It's like clear, direct, to the point. In Micah, and a minor prophet, we are reminded in the voice of the prophet of our own history. If we are the people of God, we the people, then we trace our story. We choose to trace our story through Moses, Miriam, and Aaron, and before them Abram, and before them Adam and Eve, or the human and Eve, and then before them God. And I say that because genealogy is really important. It serves as a bottleneck. If you're looking for who and what you are, who you belong to, you're going to look to your parents' parents and the parents before them, the generations that preceded you. And I really love indigenous traditions because they don't take for granted not only that they've come from somewhere, the land, and somehow there's the creation mythologies typically have them arising out of the land where they are, but also the generations that came before them. They keep this wisdom passed on orally. And then a lot of Native traditions now will also explicitly talk about 7 generations in the future. How do my actions today affect, for good or bad, the generations that come later? And that's something I think the Western mindset, the modern Western mindset, really needs to learn from. We talk a lot about what kind of future we're leaving our children, but we haven't talked in the West, in the white West, what it means to leave an earth for our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, their grandchildren. Genealogy serves as a meaning-making system. As a Christian, or I'll say as me, I do have Jewish grandparents, but I made a decision, and my parents made a decision how to form me. I didn't go to synagogue or to temple. We went to church because I was miraculously saved from death at 3 months old, but we made a series of decisions about who and what we are, or were, what we wanted to be. And genealogy is a kind of parallel system. The choices we make and the choices that we don't really get to make. We don't get to choose who our parents are. We don't get to choose what land we're native to. I'm native to Southern California and all of its history. I'm not a Native American, but I am native to America. And that means I have been adopted into, I've inherited the story that America tells about itself and where it came from. And we can't distinguish that from the land. And so we also have to be thinking about how Native Americans, indigenous Native Americans, how they tell the story of the land and what the land and prior generations have taught us. And so in the psalm, we get another kind of instruction. Evildoers are exposed. The goodly people honor the God-fearers, and this is phobeomenos. And we'll see that later, or related terms, because God-fearers are outsiders who sit on the porch of the synagogue. They aren't circumcised. They don't go inside, but they really like what's going on inside. And there's something stopping them from going all the way inside, whether their own unwillingness to be circumcised or family connections. And Jesus Christ addresses this, I might split up families. The choice to follow my story, to follow in my story, might break up families. But God-fearers are the name in Hebrew and Greek. In Hebrew, I can't remember what it is in Hebrew, but it's basically like resident aliens or the sojourners amongst you. Because Israel in the exile, they would attract and absorb other people groups. The Gibeonites being one of them, I believe, where they heard about Israel, they didn't want to get defeated in battle, so instead they tricked them into a treaty. And then the Gibeonites became the water bearers, the servants, not slaves, but servants. They became the workers of Israel. And so there's this tension between inside, outside, always, in almost every culture. Who belongs to us and who do we have power over? Membership. In America, you have membership if you were born in this land. One of the few nations to this day that have land rights, not blood rights. If you were born in our territory, you get rights. A lot of places, you only get rights if you were born to someone who has those rights, including in Rome. That's how they did it in Rome. And so Paul, who has these rights, is different from a lot of the Jews who don't have those rights. It's another conversation. But the tension between insider and outsider is the context within which we talk about instruction. Who gives a shit about what I have to say? People who decide I have authority to say it. There's not very many of you. There's between 15 and 20 who listen to these podcasts regularly. And I'm fine with that. I don't do it for you. I do it for me. I do it because I want to get closer to this thing we call the Bible. And I don't want to privatize whatever benefit or fruit. This fruit that I find doesn't belong to me. That's just not how I believe ideas and truth works. But if you are being instructed by me, it's because you've made a choice to follow in my story. In 1 Corinthians, we talk about wisdom and foolishness. And again, we're still talking about in-group, out-group. Who counts God's wisdom, meaning law and prophets, who counts that as wisdom and who counts it as foolishness? Because if you believe in Torah, those other people are going to say the thing that you call wisdom, they're going to call it foolishness. That's another way to differentiate between insiders and outsiders. Who subscribes to your meaning-making system? And next to that conversation, is that meaning-making system coherent and productive, or is it not? And that takes time to figure out, several generations. But the outsiders may say, what you think is smart isn't so smart. And we might be like, yeah, that's okay. That's not why we believe it, but we get it. You aren't a part of our meaning-making system. You're not a part of our family. You're not a part of our ancestry. That's a great word I heard from on the reservation, from the Grand Ronde tribes. I won't own it, but I'm sure it's been said elsewhere. Ancestry is a great word. Anyway, so inside, outside has to do with meaning. It has to do with belonging. It has to do with coherency and linearity. Like, how many can you count among your ancestors? Whose wisdom are you drawing from? Are your ancestors Aristotle? Are they Nietzsche? Are they Paul? Or are they Christ? And if they're Christ, it's a particular story. A bastard child born in the rural Gentile former lands of Israel, like to be brought in, or to assert that those outsiders are actually insiders, and that the cool kid insiders that think they're the insiders, they're actually on the outside. I'll do another post in the future, hopefully soon, about the Sadducees. In Hebrew, that was Zadokite. We are the Zadokites. We are the righteous ones. And it was drawing on an ancestry. Zadok was the priest in charge of building Solomon's temple. And the Zadokite dynasty went all the way through the intertestamental period before being broken. And once it was broken, the high priesthood became a political appointment. They were anointed. You splash them with oil or whatever. But that meaning-making system had lost its coherency because the Zadokite system was gone. Herod would come in later and destroy the temple. He called it remodeling, but he took it down to the foundations. He replaced the foundation stones of Zerubbabel and Joshua's temple. Herod's temple is the third temple. We're waiting maybe on a fourth one. But anyway, the point I'm making is when we hear this is what you should do, you should also be hearing, who is you? Who is the collective you? Who is Israel? Who are the people who are struggling with God and anticipate prevailing, or at least continuing to struggle successfully with God, keeping God in the mix? Not just wrestling with yourself, not just wrestling with the culture wars, wrestling with God. Who are those people? And in Matthew 5, in the Beatitudes, we have another instruction. And I've changed apostles or mathetes, means students, pupils, followers. Because if Christ is a rabbi, which means teacher or professor, then the people who draw near to him voluntarily are his students. That's why they're called mathetes. And we've heard them before. We've heard other English translations of what these Beatitudes are. And sometimes we hear those other translations so much they begin to lose meaning without us knowing it. We need to get back into the meaning-making system by re-engaging with those languages, re-engaging with that culture. And so when I say instead of the kingdom of heaven, which I said I think last week, I instead translate that as the republic of heaven. Because by the time you had an emperor, Julius Caesar and Octavian, who becomes Augustus, then king, quote unquote, king and kingdom, that's something new. The kings are below the emperor. And so king, as in the centralizing power, but which can be troubling, it is no longer the top predator, the apex predator of the political system. It's somehow below it. And republic is res publica, all things are made public under a republic. It means no private interests are in control, but that the public, governed through democratic processes, is public. Yahweh is a public God. He or they consistently engage with enemy gods like Dagon and calls them lesser gods. They're still spiritual entities. Call them gods of our own making, whatever, that's fine. But Yahweh, the Lord of gods, Yahweh Elohim, Yahweh asserts himself publicly from a mountaintop where everybody can hear. It's not just Apollo and some of Apollo's priests. No, there's one priesthood because there's one God. And as we continue through this teaching, this instruction, some of them are still mostly relevant. Those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, you have that pit in your stomach and you know you need something. And you can only be filled by righteousness. You'll be satisfied. You'll be filled. Another one in verse 8 that I did change, blessed are those who are pure of heart. I try and avoid purity language because that's usually reserved for God and God's self, and particularly the temple, the tabernacle system. Approaching God, you must be pure, and yet God comes to us in Christ in a trough as a baby who shits their pants and pukes all over their parents. Maybe we need to rethink what pure means in a divine economy. And so instead I said souls are clear. Katharos is pure and clean, but I use the language of clear because the next one is those who they will see God. They will not have any obscurity. They will see what God intends because their souls are clear instead of opaque. And finally, the peace workers instead of peacemakers. Like, too many people are claiming the mantle of peacemaking. And if you go to pewpew.ghost.io, or I think I put it on GI Justice, I'm in the middle of telling a story about my return to Iraq with quote-unquote peacemakers and how that was really just a choreographed fabrication. And I didn't have the language to extricate myself from, manufactured liturgy, manufactured faith. And I found myself caught in those systems for a long time. And when it came time to do work, which you don't necessarily know how to do, if the work becomes routine and mundane, that's liturgy. When it doesn't need to make sense, the meaning is already there, and then you're just doing this from rote memory, that's liturgy, or something like it. Work might change. If you complete one task, the work might be different. If you got detailed out to clean up battalion headquarters and you still have another hour on the clock, they're going to give you something else to do. If you keep doing the same old thing, they're going to be like, what the hell are you doing? It's already clean. We've already got X, Y, Z. Why are you not doing A, B, C now? And that's an important part to close with, because the nature of the work of God is changing because humanity changes, evolves. We are trapped in time in a way that God is not. And the work might look different. It's still just work. It will be tiring. It will be confusing. It might be dangerous. But if you're doing the same old work, and you may have already accomplished the goal, maybe you need to update what the work looks like. Because peace is not static. Just like the dark forces of evil, alienation, that's not static. There will always be people who are alienated. And our work is always about those, about overcoming the forces of alienation and oppression as they change shape to match our own work. The devil doesn't strike the same place twice. And if you find yourself just doing the same old thing, collectivism, right? Just getting mad at the same thing that everybody's supposed to get mad at, maybe the work needs to change, because that's no longer peacemaking. Some peace has already been accomplished, and now you've got to get ready to do a different kind of work to the same end. Well, them's fighting words for this week. Support Gruntworks on Venmo with username PewPewHQ, or visit pewpewhq.com/TFW to collaborate, send prayer requests, or read more of the Fightin' Word, my exegetical project centering rank and file believers. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, or if you're on Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and a review. Thanks for federating the faith with me. This has been Brother Logan, Semper Fam.